what I really wanted to do was shooting by night, because was the thing that really excited me, because sunrise, sunset are good. But for me, being outside in the dark, alone, with just me and the stars is the best part, is what I wanted to do.
Welcome to the Viewfinders Photography Podcast. My name is Graham Dargy, and you just heard from this week's guest, award-winning Italian astrophotographer Stefano Pellegrini. Welcome to the show. This is the podcast where we delve into the thoughts and experiences of some of the best photographers from around the world so that we can all be inspired to take bold steps on our own photography journeys. I hope you're keeping well. I'm good, fresh off hosting my latest Viewfinders live event with Paul Sanders the other night. An audience from all over the UK and as far afield as Minnesota in the USA and Bangkok in Thailand joined us on Zoom for Paul's thoughtful, thought-provoking presentation. It was a great night, a little different than your standard photography talk, but it was exactly what I hoped Paul would bring to the event. So we got some great feedback. One viewer said a brilliant event and your hosting was spot on. Well, thanks, I'm trying my best. My first Zoom with Viewfinders made me think, gave me ideas, well facilitated, and Paul was very good. And finally, last night was particularly good. Paul's delivery, his photographic style, and his message chimed with me. A great and enlightening evening. So appreciate the feedback. Thank you if you came along, and I'm so looking forward to the next event with Jim Richardson. Jim has shot over 50 stories for National Geographic. That's amazing. So you can imagine the depth of knowledge and experience that Jim's going to bring to his presentation. I can't wait. Tickets are available now at viewfinderslive.com and use the code VF10 to get 10% off. Sorry to keep going on about these events. I hate to do it, but I'm passionate about connecting you directly with these expert photographers I've had on the show, because I know they have nuggets of inspiration that can propel your photography to new and rewarding places. So I hope you can come along. Go get your tickets. Okay, otherwise, since the last episode, there have been milestones. Milestones have been reached. First off, it was the podcast's second birthday. 2 years in and approaching 50 episodes. My mum had her 70th birthday, so we had a family bash with my folks and the whole family. It was my birthday. I became 44 the other day, and it was our 19th wedding anniversary, so lots of reasons to celebrate. All the while cracking on with corporate photography and just spinning all the plates that a middle-aged, self-employed family man has to spin. So yeah, to circle back, thank you for listening to the podcast these last couple of years. It's been an amazing journey and I'm just so grateful. Thank you. Okay, my guest this week is Stefano Pellegrini, an astrophotographer based in Milan, Italy. Stefano only started astrophotography in 2019, but during the pandemic, he was able to spend more time on his photography. The progress he made during this time led him to reprioritize his life, leaving a staff job as a designer for drinks company Di Serono to go freelance so that he could devote more time to his photography. Since then, he's won NASA's Astronomy Picture of the Day and launched a series of tutorials, which you can find on his website, link in the show notes. Stefano shoots technically difficult images in remote and dangerous locations, combining techniques like panoramic photography, long exposure photography, and light painting, which gives him hundreds of photographs that he combines into one final stunning image in processing. Although the work is challenging and technical, Stefano's images have heart and a human touch, which is fueled by his combination of passion, creativity, craftsmanship, and dedication. If you're into this kind of photography, you're going to take so much away from this. If you're not, you're going to learn a few things and meet a fantastic young photographer who's just at the beginning of what's sure to be an incredible photography journey. Hope you enjoy this. Here's my conversation with Stefano Pellegrini. Stefano, welcome to Viewfinders Podcast. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
It's so good to speak with you. I'm really excited about today because I've been looking out for an astrophotographer. I've been keeping an eye out because it's something that I just think it's such an exciting type of photography. It looks amazing when it's done to the standard that you do it. It's just so fun. And I see a lot of photography. And when I saw your Instagram and went to your website, I was really blown away. It was just incredible astrophotography, amazing locations, and combining the way that you combine techniques, from what I can see, makes it very technical, which I find quite interesting as well. The locations, the light painting, and some of your non-astrophotography shots are just beautiful as well. So really, really good work. And I'm just excited to have you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you.
Are you a designer to trade? Is that what you do?
Yes, I'm a designer from Milan. I worked for 7 years in as a design manager and a product manager and a communication manager in the di Saronno, that is a amaretto, a liquor in Italy, and I was in charge of all the design part and the communication part, but also the creativity was already part of my previous job, because as designer the creativity was already part of my job. Photography was always has always been an hobby for me. I always went out trying to find new places and discover new places, but always with the main aim of taking picture. But in the past, it was just something that I've done while I was going around the world, trying to find discover new places and go in new countries and something like that. But there was not something with an idea behind. It was just an hobby. During the pandemic, I discovered what was the real important things for me, and what were the things that really matter for me in terms of time spending activity. So I discovered that if I have to live after the pandemic for something, was not to spend all my day in close into an office and try to go outside shooting only when there was an holiday and something like that, or Saturday and Sunday. So I decided that what I really wanted to do was shooting by night, because was the thing that really excited me, because sunrise and sunset are good, but for me, being outside in the dark alone with just me and the stars is the best part. Is just the thrill of being outside alone in the quiet, in the darkness. It's what I wanted to do. And astrophotography is really difficult, because you cannot shoot wherever you want. You have to do your things, taking only the opportunity that the nature give you. So to shoot the Milky Way, you have to shoot only in a small period of time in the year, and to shoot the Milky Way, you have to shoot only in a short period of time in the month, because you have to wait that there is no moon. So you have to use just this small period of days, and also you have to have the right condition in terms of weather. So there must be a clear sky. So being this difficult finding the days, I decided that I have to leave my company and use my time differently. So I'm still a designer today. I'm just not an employee anymore. I'm just a freelance, let me say. And I just do the same things I did before. So I'm always making new bottles for liqueurs and for alcoholic beverages before. And I like it because it's something creative, and I like the job. But I decide to spend my time when the time is correct in terms of in the astrophotography terms, to
Mm-hmm.
spend my time outside in the field shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as you saw in my portfolio, there are a lot of mountain astrophotography themed photos, and this is just a problem of Italy because the best dark skies are on the mountains.
Yeah.
So I had to, when I put in my mind to go outside and shoot the stars, I had to obligatory. I have to go to the mountains because
Yeah.
the only sky that was good was there. And
Mm-hmm.
then I discovered that I like it to go outside in the mountains in the night. So it's something that I discovered about myself while I was doing. So it
Mm-hmm.
was a good journey. It was a short journey because I started, I said, during the pandemic. So I, I'm not so an old photographer,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm quite enjoying the journey, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm doing something good.
Yeah, for sure. It's great to hear that story. So you weren't doing astrophotography before the pandemic at all, or just a little bit?
I started trying something in 2019 when I went to Iceland,
Mm-hmm.
but Iceland is not a good place in August when I went. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
good place for astrophotography because it's like always in blue hour in that
Mm-hmm.
period of the year. So I just tried and I make something, but was not the right place and the right moment.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the same year, I tried something in Dolomites, but I was able to make my first real good Milky Way arch during the pandemic in Dolomites. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I started that day making something really with an idea behind, with the real tricks that I invented on the field and so
Mm-hmm.
on. So I
Okay.
started in 2020.
Okay. It's amazing. Yeah, to see your work and how short of a time you've been at it. It's really amazing. So, um, what was that first one like then? Take us back to 2020, your first Milky Way. Were you shooting just basic astro? Because what I wanted to do was ask you about the basics that anyone listening could just go and try, and then later talk about the more in-depth techniques. So, did you start very simple, or did you start with some serious technique?
No, I started very simple, and let me say, I improved myself doing
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't make any any course. I didn't saw any tutorials or something like that. I just
Mm-hmm.
discovered on the field trying.
Okay.
So the first Milky Way arch that I made in Dolomites during the pandemic was at Cinque Torri in Dolomites, and was made without stacking, without anything about of the new techniques that I use today. Was just a pano, a simple
Mm-hmm.
pano. Also, was one of the first pano I ever made. So also the composition was not perfect because to make a pano also during the night you have to have a great imagination to understand the weights inside the final image and discover the correct framing of the different part of the pano and
Mm-hmm.
creating that in the field. It's something not so easy that
Mm-hmm.
you need a lot of practice to understand. But was was just something that I tried, and I was able to make, because I was in the location. When I arrived, I tried with Photopills, the app,
Mm-hmm.
to find where was the Milky Way. And when I discovered that at 2 a.m. was possible to make a complete Milky Way arch, I decided to try,
Mm-hmm.
just like that, without any preparation or something like that. So I tried. I discovered that was something that I could make, and I discovered that was something cool. And
Yeah.
so from that moment, I decided to do it. I don't say regularly, but something like that.
Yeah, you wanted to do that again for sure. Was part of it the process of making it, or is part of it is just the seeing the result? I feel like for you, you're a maker, right? So you
Yeah,
like the making of it.
absolutely. The part that I enjoy most of a photo is the preparation in terms of imagining the composition and what to tell with the photo. Also, when I was in Sardinia, I had this idea. I want to recreate something like Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So I buy a costume. I create
Mm-hmm.
the lightsaber with just a torch and a paper.
Uh-huh.
I found the right location in Sardinia because I knew that in Sardinia there was so much sand that could make a fake desert
Yeah.
scenario. I made the location scouting on internet. I found the location. I went outside. I went on the location. I make a draft on paper of what I had in mind. I
Mm-hmm.
checked with Photopills the right time. I spent the night there. On the location, and when everything was in the right position as I imagined, then I
Mm-hmm.
shoot.
Okay.
And then when I come back home, is just putting everything together, because I already knew everything, because I made a street project about everything. So I am when now I make some tutorials and some private lesson, and what I always try to make my audience learn is that you have to make a lot of picture to make one final photo like mine, because I make a lot of stacking, I make a lot of light painting, I make a lot of things that need separate photos to achieve. But if you do something like that because you read it about, and you try to remember, I have to do also this and also that, is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a project and you already know what you want to tell and what you want to create, then it's just simple, because it's what you need, and so you know what you need.
Yeah, you'll find what you need to do. So just for people listening, the picture you're describing there was it's in a sort of desert location. The Milky Way is going up diagonally through the sky, and I think it's you in the foreground then with the lightsaber and the
Yeah,
costume as a sort
yeah,
of a
yeah, yeah.
small figure in the middle. It's really, really effective. So all the planning that you described, that you really enjoy that process of thinking it out, does that come from your background as a designer?
I think that there is two things. First of all, I worked a lot with Photoshop in my previous occupation, and so I knew very well the program. So I know what I can and what I cannot do, and this is cool because you already knew that there is something that you can do in post or you can not do. So
Mm-hmm.
it's easier for me, I think. And the other thing is that knowing what I can do in Photoshop, like I can fake anything in Photoshop if I want. In the past I put this Aronno bottle in place where not belong, and fake lights and fake something like that. So knowing that I can fake anything, now I want to do everything real.
Mm-hmm.
So I put always a real sky on a real foreground. I have to wait 2 nights in a cave for the perfect position of the Milky Way with no clouds. I sleep two nights in a cave. It's not a problem. But I want everything real.
Mm-hmm.
And to do so, of course, you have to know your location, you have to know the sky, you have to know everything. And I think that is the important part, that you have to learn on the field and maybe on the internet, searching around. And of course, both the parts are important. Knowing the program, because you have to make a lot of picture and you have to know how to put them together. So it's important to know that. But also you have to know how the Milky Way will respond in the sky, how the camera will respond to the shooting to the night shooting that is different from daylight time.
Mm-hmm. So it's not like going out to take a photograph, really. It's understanding that there's a whole process with the several parts joining together from the start to the end, and just understanding the flow and the connection of all those things.
Absolutely. But just a thing, as always do when, as always say when I make a lesson, this is my method. I know that you can make a night picture with just one photo. You can have a good balance of both the sky and both the foreground with just one picture. You can make low level lighting, so you can have a foreground fully clear, but a Milky Way correctly exposed. So this is what I do. I'm not saying that is what you have to do to go outside and do a good astrophotography. This is what I do, and I do in that way because it's what enjoy me to do. I like complicated picture.
Yeah, you like a difficult life. Let's talk about how you do it then. Let's start at the start. Do you have initial pre-visualized ideas? How did they come? Where did they come from, or how did they come to you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I always try to make a good composition with both, where both the sky and the foreground can talk together. So this is something that I always have to have in mind. I really not go on the field without an idea. I try always to have a previous idea of something cool that I want to talk about with my photo, and can be a theme, can be like, I don't know, I made with the Lord of the Rings, or with Star Wars or something like that. It's something that has an importance in my life as a theme, or I go outside to celebrate the mountain. So I really like Tre Cime di Lavaredo or other Dolomites mountain. And I want to go outside to make a good picture of the place, trying to tell the place in a different way. I really like Dolomites because are like American desert, are very naked rocks that can become in a night picture like another planet. So this is something I really like about Dolomites. I like to imagine that I'm making a picture of another planet. And to tell this story, I like to play with, I don't know, light paintings or strange composition, making panoramas, because one thing that always make difficult my picture is that I pretty always make a panorama. Also, my vertical picture are always panoramas of horizontal picture make put it one over the other. So I create this complicated picture starting from one idea that I check on the field, making daytime scouting with my phone, with both the photopills app and finding where is the Milky Way in the sky, and my photo app of the phone. I make my panorama with the phone, and then I write on that the Milky Way will be there, and I will put myself here with a teeny man on the picture to have a clear idea of what I will obtain if I do everything correctly. And then I wait. And because I don't make time blending with blue hours or something like that, I always do the time correctly. So I shoot the night foreground on the night sky in the same moment. So I have always to wait the correct moment. So doing something like that in a location, I have like 5 places, from 3 to 5 places where I have to shoot. So I make a schedule, and I know that at midnight the Milky Way will rise, and I have to be in the first location. I go there, I make all my picture for the foreground. Then I make all my picture for the sky. Then make my all my picture for myself and the light painting, and then close everything because it's already time to go to the second location.
Okay.
Go there and do the same, and then at morning blue hour, I finally go to sleep in my tent. And then if I can, because my mind is always going about I cannot wait to put everything together, and I hope I remember to do that also, and or something like that, or there is some clouds, so I had to wait, and I was late for this third location or something. I had to change the order of the location and something like that. So it's always I shoot only the night, but the night is very rush because I have a lot of things to do. But I try to, as I said before, to schedule everything to make a strict project of everything. So when I am the location with the camera, I just have to press a button because everything was just clear in my mind. I knew everything that I had to do.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. I think sometimes we can think of creativity as something that happens like in a moment, and it can be for sure, but I can understand as a photographer that a lot of the time the creative is before, and then on the shoot, whichever kind of shoot it is, you can just be joining things up and just putting into place your plan. So I can totally relate to what you're talking about, although I've never done it. What you're talking about, I can understand the process. You are now going out into the mountains at night. Are you experienced with mountaineering, hiking, that kind of thing? Do you get quite deep into the mountains?
Yeah, I went on the top of Monte Rosa when was 2014. I made several hikes. I made a course, a Kai course, alpinistic course, and I made a lot of um, ice waterfall
Yeah. Like
hiking,
climbing. Yeah.
climbing. Yeah, I made some rock climbing, and I always went with GoPro or with a camera or something like that to try to capture something. But
Hmm.
in the time, I discovered that for me, climbing was just to arrive in the location
Hmm.
and make a good picture. Was not the climbing the part that I enjoyed,
Hmm.
like do the people that like climbing. It's
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
something bad. But for me, the real interesting part was the picture, the taking picture part. So then, when I decided to become to not to become a photographer, but to give more time to the photography part of my life, of course, all the background of hiking and climbing was good to to do what I do now. And now I'm self-aware when I am on the mountain. Sometimes I do things that are pretty crazy because I like I prefer winter than summer. I like to
Hmm.
take picture of snow, the snowy landscape during the night, and I like the winter Milky Way. So I go to the mountain a lot in the winter, in period that are risky, but I have some background of hiking,
Yeah.
and so I'm not 100% sure I will come back, but I have some advantages.
Okay. How many percent would you be sure that you'll come back?
No, but I have to say I always try to figure out if there are the condition to do
Yeah.
something safely, because
Yeah.
I don't know in Scotland, but in Italy there are a lot of people that go outside on the mountain with just tennis shoes
Hmm.
and it's something pretty dangerous. So
Yeah.
you have always to consider what you are doing.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. With the process that you described from the pre-visualized image, how
Mhm.
close do you get usually? Do you get it bang on, or are you like close enough is okay?
I usually go behind my expectation because
Hmm.
my let me say my doodles on the paper are worse than the nature. So
Okay. Okay.
I always have more from the nature that from my doodles. But I have to say I'm pretty right about what I can get from
Hmm.
the location. But just because it's not me, it's just thanks to photo pills and thanks to, let me say, the smartphone and so on. It's pretty easy to understand what you will get
Hmm.
from your camera.
Hmm.
The difficult part is the human part. So putting myself in the picture in the right spot and lightening up the right part of the composition to have a cool effect. That is something that you will see only during the night, because you cannot pre-visualize the light painting during the day.
Hmm.
So you have to try, but
Hmm.
it's really fun for me. I like to uh, put the camera mode with the remote control and
Hmm.
start shooting 30-second picture and go around running like crazy with my torch and
Hmm.
lighting up the location, and then go back to the tripod and look at the camera and see where the lights it's good and where the lights is not good, and try to imagine I can take this picture for this part lightening up and this picture for this part lightening up and put them together and put myself here and something like that. So something you can pre-visualize correctly and something not. But till now, I always been lucky enough to be blessed with good condition and good places also to to take good picture better than the initial idea sometimes.
Let me ask you about a couple of the particular techniques that you use then. With shooting the sky itself then, do you use like a star tracker or something like that? Is that something you could talk about?
Yeah, uh, I I tried with the Star Tracker, but it's really too constrictive for me because I prefer to move the camera around and not be framed by using the polar to align and something like that. So I tried. I had this great deal with Move Shot Move that they give me the Star Trek at half the price to try it, and I made a good some good picture, but were only the easy composition because if you want to make a Star Trek a tracked picture of a panorama, it's difficult. If you want to make a tracked picture of a vertical panorama, is more difficult. If you want to make a star tracked panorama of a vertical panorama with also light painting and yourself in it and something like that, it became a nightmare because you have to every time change the position of the camera, track the polar again and something like that. So for my type of shooting is not the perfect thing to use. Has a lot of potential. I used it for a single picture and I enjoyed it. But for what I do, it's difficult. So it's long, and I prefer to do 7 picture in one night and make them every picture difficult because it's difficult to make like making a panorama and not difficult because I have to track the polar. It makes sense.
Yeah, I do. I understand. Yeah, it's interesting because to me, as an outsider to astrophotography, I thought that's what you do. I thought that was the thing to do, and then to hear for you as someone who's advanced, playing outside of those sort of rules or boundaries, and I think it's really exciting. I wanted to ask you about some of the opportunities or exciting experiences that have come up through your photography journey. I saw that you'd made a calendar for a vodka company. Can you talk about how that
Yeah,
came up and what that experience was like?
absolutely. This was my previous company, the same that as Di Saronno. And for them, I worked a lot of time, 7 years for them, both creating packaging and both making key visuals and TV spot and something like that. And when I left the company, one of my last work was creating a rebranding for that vodka and creating a new bottle for that vodka, both for the label and both for the glass itself. And the idea was to make a bottle that were made from ice, so it remembers that the glass it remembered that. When I went outside the company, they worked on it and finalized the project and created the final version. And used an agency to have a marketing idea of what was the right positioning for a vodka like that. And the idea of the agency was that was the Italian vodka of the Italian mountains. And so they create some ideas, some ADV for that. And when the CIO saw the proposal from the agency, he said, they are not the right person to do that. We already knew a person that can do this in a good way. And so they contact me. And I start making just the key visual, the idea, the commercial idea for the product. And then when they saw that, they decided to make also a calendar. So they paid me to go to the mountains and shoot a picture of mountains. That was crazy for me. It was exactly what I wanted to do in my life. And they wanted a specific a picture with the one that I make, so with a strong foreground, and then the mountain in the back with the correct lighting. So they preferred the sunset and the sunrise, but near to the blue hour, so the foreground was lightening up in the correct way as they expected. So I have to make this tour around Italy, shooting the best mountain of Italy, from Cervino to the Etna volcano where was erupting. So a cool experience. And of course, I had the opportunity to shoot both for them and both for myself. So I was able to make a star trail on Mount Etna when was erupting, a panorama with the complete Milky Way arch on top of Etna Mount, or Orion, because it was winter. So Orion above Etna while it was erupting. And I went also to Monviso and to Cervino and to all around Italy. It was really cool.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you're not 100% sure you'll make it back alive, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
So cool. That's awesome. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, I mean, I love that story, how just what you wanted to do, and it just came to you from your experience and your contacts. Your journey brought you to it. It's amazing. I wanted to also ask you about the NASA award that you got, because I love that photograph. It's fantastic. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. And that was also something that I discovered on the field, because I was in the same place where I spent the lockdown. I went back in the same place that is in Veneto, in Dolomites.
Mm-hmm.
I went back for the Christmas holidays. Let me say that it was not the Christmas holidays, but in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed there a month, and I went outside sometimes to make some hikes and to make some picture. But was a really not snowy winter till December. When the first days of December arrived, there was so much snow that I have to stay inside for 3 days without electricity, because everything was under the snow. When finally the snowing stopped, I had some clear skies for a couple of days, and I had already scheduled to come back, but I decided to stay there because there were the right condition to make some good shooting, and I checked where I could go. And of course, as you can imagine, if you are on the mountain after a storm, not all the streets are open, so you have to go where the road is open.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried my first location, but was impossible to go there. So I decided to go to Montepelmo, that is where I made that picture. And I arrived there. It was not where I wanted to be, so I was not so cool about it because the Milky Way was in the wrong position.
Mm-hmm.
I was not uh, exactly excited.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was there, trying with photopills to understand what I could shot because the Milky Way was not in the right position, I discovered that I could make a good Orion shot above the mountain. And also I discovered that there were the Geminidi meteor shower,
Mm-hmm.
and was something I didn't expect. And also, it was something that I never tried to shot.
Okay.
So I had to improvise on the field. The camera option to use for that so typical phenomenon was made just from scratch there because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any previous experience of that, but I just tried, and I was able to catch really something. Also because was the right night, because if I went there the night before, the Gemini Milky Way, the Gemini meteor shower was not in the peak, so the condition will be not the same, and
Mm-hmm.
it was impossible to make the same picture.
Mm-hmm.
But everything was in the right order to make the final shot. Also, that shot is a vertical pano because I
Mm-hmm.
like to make something, make the things difficult,
Yeah.
and I wanted to have as much sky as possible. So I made two different inclination for the camera. One for
Mm-hmm.
the foreground, having the mountain and the foreground with the little cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tilted up the camera as much possible as I could, having all the sky in the frame uh, and also the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And I left the camera there shooting when was possible because I didn't have an intervalometer or something like that. I just have to catch the stars when I saw them in the sky. It was something different from what I do usually.
Okay, so just to describe, there's the cabin in the foreground, which you're sort of looking down on. The mountains are behind, and then sort of looking up above that is the stars, obviously, and the meteors are raining down. They're perfectly. I mean, it's amazing. But you just had to shoot when you saw a meteor. Is that what you mean?
I started like that because I didn't have any plan. I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Then I tried to treat the meteor as a star trail. So I put the camera as I put when I make a star trail. So 30-second with medium ISO and leave it there to shoot. But of course, doing so was not perfect for the meteor because you have long meteor, but also bright sky, so you cannot see the meteor correctly. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to spend the night trying,
Mm-hmm.
and then for a good, I don't know why, but I could make a good a good final photo because the sky, only the sky was made with hundreds of pictures.
Mm-hmm.
From them, I choose only 35 pictures where there were the meteor inside. Then I have to align them, because if you think about that, the sky is moving, or let me say, the earth is moving. So you see the sky moving. So to have the meteor aligned every time with the background sky, you have to align them, because if you don't do so, you have you multiply the star in the sky.
Yeah.
So it's really complex, and was something that I had to. It's the opposite of what I tell you before about the preparation and something like that. It was something that I had to discover on the field, and also I have to learn more when I was home, and I have to put together everything, because I discovered that there were other problems and so on. So it's something that you sometimes you have to learn doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a good way of learning also.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like that kind of on the spot problem solving that you can do when you understand what your equipment can do, what your processing can do. You just understand the process, so that would allow you to improvise a little bit. Think, okay, I kind of think this can work, and you just kind of go with it. It's such a cool picture. I wish I could describe it better for people listening, but they have to go and check out your portfolio and your Instagram. I think, yeah, processing is a big part of this kind of photography. So would you be able to give me a quick overview of the kind of what typically goes into processing an image?
Yeah, absolutely. I hate to do that, but I have to speak also about what I shoot, because it's important in terms of post-production. Taking my usual picture, it's like a vertical panorama of four picture horizontal. So there are four frames making a final vertical image. Every frame has to be shoot 10 times for the sky, 2 times in long exposure for the foreground, and an incredible number of times for the light painting to have it correctly. When you have all this amount of picture, that is almost 100 picture, you arrive in front of your computer. You have to put everything together. First of all, I make a stacking about the sky. So I have, let me say, in a final image, a vertical image of 4 frames, there are 2 that are most sky and a bit of foreground, and 2 that are most foreground and no sky. So the 2 parts that are from most sky, I have to make a stacking. I use Sequator, that is a free program. I make the stacking of the 10 picture of the first frame. Then I make the stacking of the 10 picture of the second frame. Then I start, and so I have the, let me say, initial frame of the sky. So I have 2 frames for the sky. Then I start with the foreground. For the foreground, usually I have 4 frames, because the foreground with the mountains go on the sky, so you have to make also the long exposure for that part. So I start my stacking that I make in Photoshop. For the foreground, I make the stacking of the 2 image of the first frame, then the 2 image of the second frame, then the 2 image of the third frame, and then for the last frame. When I may have that, now I have 6 frames, 2 from the sky that will overlap the first 2 of the foreground, and then the other 2 of the foreground. Now I have all my picture of the light painting. First of all, I have to check which one use and which one not. And when finally I decided which one use, I have to overlap them over the frames of the foreground. And usually it's difficult because also you have to make a light painting that it's good to be joined together when you make a panorama. It's not so easy because you have to use the light in the correct way. And also in post-processing, you have to choose wisely which one use and which one not, and so on. When you have combining everything together, you can see the final picture. You can make the panorama with all these frames using Photoshop easily. You have the final image joined together in one single panorama. And from that, you can start the post-processing that is usual for the normal people. So I make a different post-processing for the foreground, for the stars. But in that moment, it's just a normal picture because it's joined together. So I just select only the sky and make a post-processing that enhance the stars and the Milky Way. Then I select only the foreground and play with the color correction, making the foreground a bit bluish and the light painted a bit gold to have it good to the eye. And you can play with everything with orton effects and so on. But let me say the important part is the first one, when you have to join together everything, knowing what you want to do. That is the difficult part. I hope it was easy to understand.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can follow that. I think people who are into this will follow it. And I want to say for anyone who's listening who is interested in this, I know you have tutorials on your website. I think.
Yeah.
Well, do you
Yeah,
want to explain what you
in
have?
Italian. Yeah, both in Italian and both in English. Also, I make a private lesson, one-to-one lesson, also in English. So, if someone is interested.
Yeah, I think so. They can have like a video call with you to talk it over. Yeah, you would be a fantastic resource for anybody who wanted to either give this a go or to get better at it if they're already doing it, because your standard is so high. I think it's so interesting. It's so technical and so creative at the same time. And I just think your combination of skills is really amazing. So I'm so impressed by what you do. I definitely can't do this. There's no way I could do it. I don't even want to go outside in the cold. So that's me ruled out already. So let me ask you quickly about what's in your camera bag. What camera and lens do you love to use?
My backpack is not a photographer backpack. My backpack is a mountaineer backpack. I have like a 75-liter Salewa backpack with 90% equipment for mountain hiking and sleeping on the snow. And just last 10% is two cameras, two lenses, and two tripods. This because I want to make both a star trail and a lot of picture with the other camera. So I always leave one camera, the X one, the APS-C one. I leave it doing a star trail. And then with the other camera, I run around making all the other picture that I want to make.
Okay.
So I have to carry two cameras, two lenses, two tripods for that reason. And for the photographic part, it's just like that. All the other things are just crampons and a sleeping bag, tent, and so on.
Yeah, I can imagine. So it's interesting. You just camera and lens, tripod, that's all that you need. I'm just fascinated by the whole process. Right. usually I do a round where we talk about some of your photographs specifically, and I kind of think we've covered that, but well, it's my show, so I'm gonna decide that we're gonna talk about one more picture if you don't mind, because this one, if I can get this to come up, yeah. I only wanted to ask about this one because on your Instagram it says it's the most difficult picture you ever made. And I'll describe the picture. You're in a cave, sort of looking out to a sea. There's a cliff face in front of you on the left, another island, sort of cliffy, rocky island in the middle for distance, and then the Milky Way arching up over to the left. And it's in a place called Porto Banda. Is that right?
Yeah.
So
It
do
was
you know
made. Yeah. It was made in Sardinia. I was outside making some location scouting during the day, and I discovered this strange cave, enormous cave, because it's really huge. And I'm used for two very small cave in the mountains. That one was really huge. And when I was inside the cave, I tried with photo pills to discover where the Milky Way was. And I discovered that the cave was so big that was possible to make half Milky Way arch. So not a complete panel of a complete Milky Way arch, but just half of it. And that in the right moment of the night, if I remember correctly, was like 3 o'clock a.m. The Milky Way arch were fitting perfectly the empty part of the sky that was visible inside the cave.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sure that I had to do that. I spent like half an hour during the afternoon trying to recreate the shot that I had to do during the night, because it was a really complicated shot, because I had to do a panorama of 5 rows of picture. Each row had inside the sky, the cave, the light painting, and myself. And each part had to be shotted in a different way to have it in a correct way. So for the cavern, I have to, for the cave, I had to do a stacking, focus stacking, to have both the part real close to me and both the foreground that was away from myself, all clear and all perfectly in focus. So I have to go making a focus stacking, then an HDR, because inside the cave was very dark and outside the cave was night but was less dark. So I have to do also on top an HDR. And then I have to make the stacking for the sky that was made as a panorama, so with a lot of picture, each one a stacking. Then I have to do a selfie for me, and a lot of selfie for the light paintings, each in every frame. So the amount of picture in total was enormous, and was pretty difficult to put everything together. But also I spent the day after in Sardinia going around, like when I was searching for a place to eat, for a restaurant or something like that, or when I was on the beach, always thinking about, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to put this there, I have to use that frame for that. And because I made a crazy amount of picture, and I already knew what I have to do, but I was still checking in my mind because it was really a difficult picture. But the result is really strange, because you are not usual to see half a Milky Way arch, and also you are not usual to see a Milky Way bending inside a cave. A lot of people write me saying it's a good picture, but it's you can see that it's fake because the Milky Way is bending. And I made a story in Instagram showing all the background, all the making of in the camera, showing that it was always everything was real and just was something that you cannot expect in a photo.
Yeah, I love it. It's so cool to hear you talk. You have an amazing mind to be able to hold all of the moving parts that you have and to just kind of visualize all of it coming together. It's really, really cool. Okay, thank you so much. Pels, last round, okay? This is a quick fire round.
Okay.
So we have to be fast. Wide angle or telephoto?
Wide angle, absolutely.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Stay up late or wake up early? I know this one for you.
Stay out late, absolutely.
For sure. Do you just sleep during the day? You're like a nocturnal animal.
No, the adrenaline is too much. I cannot sleep before and after. It's impossible.
I understand, yeah. Okay, do you use an expensive lens cloth or the corner of your shirt?
Middle way, because I use a cloth, but not expensive.
Okay. And which is your favorite emoji? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The one with the tent.
Okay, who is the best Italian band or musician?
Elio e le storie tese.
Okay, say it again.
Elio e le storie tese. Elio and the Trouble Story.
Oh, okay. Are they good?
Yeah, are crazy. They have a lot of background. They studied a lot, but then they decided to make funny music, not let me say serious one. So it's very interesting because they use a lot of instrument. They have a lot of competence, but they make crazy things.
Okay, cool. That sounds fun. Okay, what's a weird thing I can find in your camera bag?
I think the things that I use to make the light paintings sometimes are really strange. I use also steel wool, and to use the steel wool correctly, you have to use the things that you use to make the eggs.
A whisk.
Yeah, that one. And
Yeah.
this is something strange besides an ice axe and crampons. Finding that is pretty strange.
Yeah. It's good for making your eggs as well if you're camping, I guess. So name a photographer that we should all know, whether in your field or a different kind of photography.
I started making photos thanks to Fabio Antenore, that is a Swiss photographer that make very impactful picture. So I started thanks to him and following him. So I had to say him.
Okay, I'll put the link in the show notes. And the last question, when do you feel at peace with the universe?
That's really easy. When I am outside, leaning on my back, looking at the sky, after I have shooted, so I'm calm, and I can just relax and enjoy the view. Because sometimes you are too inside the camera that you are not enjoying the view. So when you are finished all your picture and you can lay down on your back and just watch the sky, it's perfect.
Yeah, I understand that. Thank you so much, Pelle. This has been so exciting because I think people who are into this or interested in it are going to get so much out of it. And people who are not really into it will just probably skip it completely. But I think you're just such an expert at what you do. I'm so energized by your story that you're quite new to this, but your photography is insane. It's amazing. So I'll put links to everything in the show notes. I hope everyone checks it out. And I hope that if you're interested in it, people can go and check out your tuition as well, because I'm sure they get a lot from that. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening. Follow Stefano on Instagram and check out his website to see more of his incredible photography and to find out about his tutorials and prints. Links to everything we spoke about are in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, check out my conversation with light painter Eric Parry and my chat with creative powerhouse Howard Schatz. That's all for now. Enjoy your photography. I'll see you out there.